Have you ever traveled to another country? Have you ever lost something important? Have you ever met a famous person? Have you ever cooked a meal for more than 10 people? Have you ever missed a flight? Have you ever seen a shooting star? Have you ever been to a concert? Have you ever ridden a horse? Have you ever been lost in a city? Have you ever gone scuba diving? Have you ever won a prize? Have you ever slept in a tent? Have you ever gone fishing? Have you ever climbed a mountain? Have you ever forgotten a significant other's birthday? Have you ever watched a sunrise? Have you ever baked a cake? Have you ever cried at a movie? Have you ever danced in the rain? Have you ever been stuck in an elevator? Have you ever written a poem? Have you ever been to a wedding? Have you ever flown a kite? Have you ever built a snowman? Have you ever been surfing? Have you ever had a surprise party thrown for you? Have you ever thrown a surprise party for someone? Have you ever been in a play? Have you ever planted a garden? Have you ever taken a yoga class? Have you ever been on TV? Have you ever learned to play a musical instrument? Have you ever painted a picture? Have you ever written a letter to someone? Have you ever gone vegan? Have you ever read a book more than once? Have you ever broken a bone? Have you ever taken care of a sick friend? Have you ever lost a bet? Have you ever been to a sports event? Have you ever taken a road trip? Have you ever been to an island? Have you ever made a speech? Have you ever stayed up all night? Have you ever gone bird watching? Have you ever had a pet? Have you ever been to a zoo? Have you ever swum in an ocean? Have you ever been skiing? Have you ever saved someone's life? Have you ever been to a museum? Have you ever lost your way while driving? Have you ever attended a music festival? Have you ever been to a foreign film screening? Have you ever tried exotic food? Have you ever been to a theme park? Have you ever dyed your hair? Have you ever participated in a marathon? Have you ever made a significant life decision spontaneously? Have you ever taken part in a protest? Have you ever built something with your own hands? Have you ever won a contest? Have you ever had a dream come true? Have you ever ridden in a hot air balloon? Have you ever been on a cruise? Have you ever seen snow? Have you ever helped a stranger in need? Have you ever lost something valuable and then found it? Have you ever given a gift that was particularly appreciated? Have you ever been to a haunted house? Have you ever taken a dance class? Have you ever seen a wild animal in its natural habitat? Have you ever been whitewater rafting? Have you ever gone on a blind date? Have you ever had a paranormal experience? Have you ever volunteered for a charity? Have you ever written a blog? Have you ever had a tarot reading? Have you ever had an embarrassing haircut? Have you ever missed someone so much that it hurt? Have you ever attended a religious ceremony different from your own? Have you ever been to an opera? Have you ever ridden a motorcycle? Have you ever seen an eclipse? Have you ever been fired from a job? Have you ever won a lottery ticket? Have you ever been to a drive-in movie theater? Have you ever been accused of something you didn't do? Have you ever learned a foreign language? Have you ever been to a psychic? Have you ever had a roommate? Have you ever kept a diary? Have you ever gone apple picking? Have you ever been to a farm? Have you ever been on a radio show? Have you ever gone ice skating? Have you ever saved someone from danger? Have you ever built a fort? Have you ever been to a costume party? Have you ever gone without electricity for more than a day? Have you ever made your own clothes? Have you ever seen a famous landmark? Have you ever taken part in a cultural festival? Have you ever gone whale watching? Have you ever been to a comedy show? Have you ever lost something in the water? Have you ever made a candle? Have you ever had a surprise visitor from out of town? Have you ever gone windsurfing? Have you ever made a significant change to your appearance? Have you ever been to a desert? Have you ever solved a complex puzzle? Have you ever donated blood? Have you ever been in a limousine? Have you ever made a friend online? Have you ever been to a castle? Have you ever seen a volcano? Have you ever been mistaken for someone else? Have you ever learned a traditional dance? Have you ever had a picnic in the park? Have you ever been to a national park? Have you ever been paddleboarding? Have you ever been on a retreat? Have you ever seen a glacier? Have you ever been to a rooftop party? Have you ever been to a vineyard? Have you ever made a speech at a wedding? Have you ever participated in a scavenger hunt? Have you ever lost a friend? Have you ever been to a baby shower? Have you ever seen a Broadway show? Have you ever been on a television game show? Have you ever caught a fish and cooked it? Have you ever been to a black tie event? Have you ever seen an animal being born? Have you ever been to a book signing? Have you ever had to speak in front of a large audience? Have you ever been to a gallery opening? Have you ever tried archery? Have you ever been in a professional photo shoot? Have you ever written a song? Have you ever been part of a flash mob? Have you ever ridden a camel? Have you ever helped organize a large event? Have you ever been to a film premiere? Have you ever been in a parade? Have you ever been to a circus? Have you ever been part of a book club? Have you ever done graffiti legally? Have you ever been to an adult education class? Have you ever made a pottery piece? Have you ever ridden in a helicopter? Have you ever had a painting or art exhibit? Have you ever been to a live podcast recording? Have you ever run for public office? Have you ever tried surfing the internet in the early morning? Have you ever planted a tree? Have you ever had a mentor? Have you ever won a scholarship? Have you ever seen the Northern Lights? Have you ever been a mentor to someone else? Have you ever had a part-time job? Have you ever been to a farm? Have you ever watched a surgery? Have you ever been to a planetarium? Have you ever been skydiving? Have you ever cooked a dish from a different culture? Have you ever been to an auction? Have you ever repaired something by yourself? Have you ever slept under the stars? Have you ever been part of a charity fundraiser? Have you ever won an award in school or work? Have you ever made a family tree? Have you ever gone deep sea fishing? Have you ever participated in a debate? Have you ever written a play? Have you ever adopted an animal? Have you ever been to an exotic island? Have you ever made a documentary? Have you ever been to a fortune teller? Have you ever been part of a relay race? Have you ever been to a silent disco? Have you ever been to a drag show? Have you ever been to a vintage car show? Have you ever participated in a TV show taping? Have you ever been to an escape room? Have you ever been to a magic show? Have you ever attended a murder mystery dinner? Have you ever been in a submarine? Have you ever made wine or beer at home? Have you ever gone to a costume ball? Have you ever attended a spiritual ceremony? Have you ever ridden in a race car? Have you ever attended a major sports final? Have you ever been in a choir? Have you ever collected something unusual? Have you ever taken part in a historical reenactment? Have you ever been to an ethnic festival? Have you ever been to an immersive art experience? Have you ever been part of a live studio audience?